Hi all, today we'll be enlightening prospective IELTS candidates the subtle aspects of IELTS writing. Many students find it difficult to comprehend the question as it is and properly understand what is meant in the question.
The important aspects of IELTS writing is to identify the topic of the question, also to carry out the keyword analysis, and finally to plan the content properly. Every IELTS essay must have minimum of 4 paragraphs and maximum of 5 paragraphs. The first paragraph of your IELTS essay is called as the introduction.
The essay should ideally begin with an introduction, which is the first sentence of the introductory paragraph. This could be related to your question. You should read and understand the question carefully and frame a sentence that could be related to this topic. We have done a detailed video on how to write an effective introduction for the essays. I would make sure that we'll pin it in the description box below.
In the introduction paragraph, next comes the thesis statement. The candidate should clearly mention what the candidate stands for. For example, in case of an agree-disagree question, you have to clearly mention whether you agree to the question or you disagree.
Or you can even mention whether you partially disagree. This type of answer would again make the entire essay a bit confusing. It's better to either agree or disagree and state your points clearly.
Now let's just analyze a question. All education, primary, secondary, and tertiary, should be free to all people and paid for by the government. Do you agree or disagree with the statement? Can you just give a sample thesis for this particular question?
So, as we've just mentioned, it's very important to clearly state whether you agree or disagree to this question. And again, remember, try to paraphrase the question, try maximum to avoid repetition of words in the question as it is. So, let's look into a sample thesis statement here for this question. You could say, this essay completely or fully agrees to the proposition that all the education expenses should be borne by the government for all, right? Instead of paid, we used the synonym borne, should be borne by the government. Again, I clearly stated that the essay completely agrees, or you could say the essay fully agrees. Instead of that, you could also say, I completely agree or I fully agree.
Agree to it.
Right? Based on your thinking capacity, based on your availability of words, you can
Ideas, based
ideas
on
you
the
can
ideas you
you
have,
can
you can agree or disagree.
disagree, and then you can come up with different sentences to frame a good thesis, right? Again, if it is a disagreement to the question, you could say this essay vehemently or strongly disagrees to the rest of the
So
question.
vehemently here means?
Strongly, it is a synonym for the word strongly disagrees.
All right. I hope it's clear how to write a strong thesis statement. The second paragraph of the essay is the first body paragraph. In this paragraph, the candidate must express own viewpoint clearly and concisely. It would be ideal to substantiate the standpoint with an apt example.
This is an occasion where the candidate should use either personal experiences or other facts and figures to cement the idea. Remember, when it comes to part 2 of the writing test, it would be clearly mentioned in the question in most of the cases that you should state an example to justify your points.
So let's try to analyze the first body paragraph. For a start, the first reason why education should be made free for all is that such a move will disturb a nation's priority concept. So the point that we have discussed earlier is that our topic's sentence should be clear and concise. So the nation's priority, that is something that they have concisely
Mentioned and specified here. Now, to justify this point, we can
give an
example, or to cement this idea, we can give an example. Let's look into the sample example here. For instance, every government has more important matters to take care of, such as food for the marginalized, healthcare for the needy, infrastructure development, and so on. See, here I state an example to make my point more clear, to justify my point, and to cement the idea.
Different areas which the government should be focusing on, or where the budget should be spent
It's
on.
basically about priority, which is my topic sentence.
Yes. Exactly. So this is what we were trying to say. Every time when you write a topic sentence, it should be concise and clear. When you write example point, it should be related to the topic sentence that you have written before.
Also, the point mentioned at the opening of the body paragraph, which is the topic sentence, should further be elaborated and then concluded, underscoring your own view. So, the first body paragraph should ideally end with a conclusion. The third paragraph of the essay is known as body paragraph 2, which should again be used to express own view, definitely a different point than the one that you stated in the first body paragraph. Generally, body paragraphs 1 and 2 can be of the same structure and style and should contain own view only, which means that in the second paragraph too, if possible, you should try to establish your ideas and then explain it with an example and conclude the paragraph effectively.
The fourth paragraph of the essay is known as the conclusion. In this paragraph, a candidate should briefly mention the summary of the points discussed in paragraph 1 and 2.
Remember, in the conclusion, you should never try to add in extra points other than what you've mentioned in the body paragraphs. It should definitely be the summary of the points that you've mentioned in the first and the second body paragraphs.
In the writing task 2 essay, it is mentioned that the candidate must write at least 250 words. So it is always safe to write in a range of 250 to 270 words.
Since the time allotted is only 40 minutes and the candidate has to read the question several times, pinpoint the topic, carry out keyword analysis, and plan the content, around 32 minutes would only be available to write the actual content of the essay.
All right.
Right. So it is always advisable for you to somewhat plan your essay to somewhere around 275 words, 270 to 275 words. Right. So there are 3 tips that you could follow to write an essay efficiently. You all are at different levels of writing. Some might have started with your preparations. Some might be somewhere in between, and some of you might be nearing your exams. Whichever stage you are, the first thing is very important, which is to read the essays. There are a lot of good essays available online. Also, at B-GHUD, we have a lot of essays in our book IELTS and TOEFL Made Easy. We also have a book called IELTS Writing Made Easy, where you can find a lot of useful essays. Our essays have a speciality. These are written exactly in the IELTS format so that you can clearly understand and identify the structure of the essay, which would definitely help you with your preparations. Reading an essay would definitely give you insights about the points that you could connect with the question. Again, this would make you understand with the structure of the essay, and you could get a lot of ideas like the connectors that you could use, that the synonyms for different words that you could use. So there are a lot of benefits when it comes to reading an essay.
The second tip is to practice essays. Whenever you practice an essay, the first thing that you have to remember is you have to brainstorm ideas about it. Read the question, understand the topic, and try to note down the points. Both agree and disagree. For example, write sides for both agree points and disagree, and whichever you feel comfortable that you can elaborate with proper examples, you should take that side. It is mandatory to brainstorm first and foremost. Then practice essays. Whenever you write essays, as we already mentioned, make sure that you have a range between 250 to 270 words. Make sure you count it, otherwise you'll not be able to understand the number of words that you write. And finally,
it's the correction that you get for your essays. It's always important. Of course, you can find a lot of tutorials online and videos that would help you with your preparations, but it's always beneficial to attend coaching to get your essays corrected frequently by experts. This is mainly because, as I've already mentioned in many of our previous videos, uh, IELTS essay or IELTS in general is a very structured test. It has a specific pattern. It's not like something that you write for leisure.
because there are 4 criteria that a candidate has to remember. Based on those criteria, if you're not getting proper corrections, your required score cannot be achieved. So the importance of correction cannot be overlooked in case of IELTS writing task 2.
That's it for today's video. In today's video, we talked about the structure of an essay, how you should come up with effective introduction, body paragraphs, and conclusion.
How to write a good example.
Yes, example again is very important. I hope this was useful. Please do comment below your suggestions and feedbacks and any future topics that you wish us to talk about. So that's it for today. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you, guys.